Yeah. How's it going, everyone? Um, is the audio and the video okay? So we can get started today. Let me get some notes up here. There we go. Hey, Nigel, how you doing? BJ, how are you? Okie doke. Um, Full of red wine, my favorite. Um, yeah, I'm a more of a. Did is it a domestic or a more interesting wine? Hi, Matt. Oh, great. I'm glad you did. Boy, I could use a glass of wine. I could use a keg of wine. There used to be this stuff here in the U.S. It was called $2 Chuck, something like that. It was popular for a while. It was Charles something or other, and they called it $2 Chuck. Um, geez. Ah, anyway. Um, Hi, Embry. Thank you very much. Uh, Today, or this afternoon, actually, we talked about a bunch of stuff this morning. By the way, uh, for anyone who is on the morning group, one thing I left out, we were talking about what kinds of things that you needed in addition to having, and collecting watches. What are some of the things you needed? And one thing I left out were some good books on on watchmaking and things like that. For beginners, there's a good one by Ryan Schmidt called the Wristwatch Handbook. That's a good thing for beginners, but there are a whole lot of other ones. There's some good ones by George Daniels. The one that everybody seems to get and nobody reads is called Watchmaking. And the other one, though, that I really like is called The Art of Breguet. So that was from this morning. Hi, Lee, William, how you guys doing? Dom, how are you? Tuna, good to see you. Getting four glasses at the game later. Okay. Oh man. Um. Well, here's what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if any of you sort of took a little time to go through the different categories that they have, and the they have all of these different things for the Grand Prix. It's all these categories of the iconic calendar, chronograph, jewelry, petite aiguille. What are they called? Something arts and crafts. Here's one. Then they have the men's complication, the ladies complication, all of these different categories, and most of them, um, are sort of pretty good. I noticed something today. I was looking at men's complications, and there was an Audemars Piguet in that group of men's complications with a tourbillon. And the interesting thing is that there's another category called tourbillon. If a tourbillon is going to have its own category, if you have a tourbillon, they ought to make you put it in that category, because some guy or some watchmaker who's sort of has something that does something interesting complication, it's usually not going to be as complicated as a tourbillon, and so it's sort of like throwing in sort of a a, a ringer, so to speak. But those are some of the things that were anyway. Did you enter your group's watch? Yes, yes, Lee, we did. By the way, too, what Lee is asking about, and probably I'm surprised everybody should know about it. We did under the name of the group is Lyrique, um, for lyric. It's a French for lyric, and the name of the watch is Etude number one, which is the first practice, and we are in the petite aiguille category. Take a look at it. I think you'll like it. I want to see a tourbillon tested in 0G. Would that be a kick to see a floating floating in space? It would be. Um, BJ, thanks. We'll need it, man. I tell you, the competition, it's very tough competition, and the petite aiguille category has a lot of competitive watches. I think ours is competitive, but you never know. Isn't ours a ringer? Yeah, Nigel, it is. I think, but the whole thing is there's so many variables in there that are really hard to figure out, and so we're doing the best we can. The big thing is between Monday, tomorrow is August 1st. So in 1 month, at in September 1st, 1 month, we'll find out whether the watches made the nominations or not. And what that means, if they made the nominations, um, there has to be a physical watch for them to send on a world tour. It's really amazing. And if it's not, then we don't have to oh, we don't have to worry about it anymore. But we'll see. We're really hopeful that it will do well. And the thing is, I think the ones that are, for me anyway, that is the most important. I really like Agenor. If you go back and you look at all of these watches that have won different in just about every category, there are so many of them have an Agenor movement or some kind of function or something, uh, some kind of complication or a module that Agenor did, but they never get credit for it. But Van Cleef and Arpels or Fabergé or Singer or oh, H. Moser, all of these watches that have won Grand Prix awards, plus a lot more, have uh, something by Agenor. And that's one of the things we wanted to do. We wanted to give them credit because they never get credit and they should. Oh, well, they do sometimes. I mean, the Agengraph, uh, that was everybody gave them credit, but when who won the award? I think Fabergé won one that they did, and then H. Moser did last year, I think, and then who else won? Somebody else who used their movement won. So we ours did too. Ours was right down to the ground up the movement where the insides were them. So I really hope that also too. People you never hear about except rarely are the designers. We had a great designer, a guy named Mathieu Allegri, and I probably said it wrong. But anyway, Matthew did a great job too on the design of the case. We have a really uniquely designed case because of that. But like I said, we got tough competition this year, so we'll see how it is. Um, yeah, we'll see. Anyway, well, one of the reasons that I think that it would be that I wanted to talk about these. Um, You know what I think I'll do? I think I'll bring up a list of all of them on the hang on a second. See, here we go. And okay, now here are the categories that they have, and I'm going to put this over here so I can see it. And I see what be better over here. Okay, so this is the other thing too. I don't know. Uh, if we were a real company, we wouldn't be in this cave. We just got ace guys with us. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Um, here's the categories you look at. They have, and this one in this day and age always surprises me. It's a ladies and ladies competition, and then they have the men's and ladies and ladies complication. Then they have the men's and the men's complications. Well, if they're gonna have ladies, they ought to have gentlemen, all right, but they don't. Or they should have, if they decided they got to have men, they should have women. That's not a big deal, but it's always, I always thought, why do they do that? But um, who knows? Anyhow, so let's talk about these different categories and which ones that we might want to change or do something to. Hi, Jose. How you doing? What is GPHG? Good question. It's the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève. It's sort of like the Academy Awards for watches. That's exactly what it's like. They have these people who, not us, but we only spent about a half a million. But they literally, these watch companies, they really knock themselves out. One year, Tag Heuer had made something like $150,000 watch. They made one of them just so they could win an award. Really sort of nuts. We didn't do that, but it's yeah, it's a Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève, the grand prize of the watchmaking of Geneva. Hey, Rancher, good to see you. Okay, so let's take a look at these categories and maybe reconsider some of the things. We talked about ladies, we talked about ladies' complication, men's, and then men's complication. All of those make sense. I tell you, a meat grinder of a category to enter a watch in is the men's because they have so many and they're so good that something that wins a men's competition is really some watch. Um, Hi, Briar. Suggestion: best time only manual wine category. Oh, that's sort of interesting. That's an interesting category. In other words, the watch that keeps the best time. Um, and so they'd all enter and they'd wind them all up, and then they'd have a really top rated time grapher or something to see which one. That's a great idea. But here are a couple caveats: no silicon, all right? No silicon hairsprings, no silicon escapements. Got to be traditional metals, and I'd be all for that. Um, oh, but that's a good idea. I like that. Some of these things, I think they do that anyway. But to have one like that that recognizes that, I think, is a great idea. Um, the petite aiguille, a very small egg. Wait a minute now. That's God, that's the correct way to pronounce it, by the way. What it means is really is two different things. Petite aiguille, aiguille itself. There's aiguille d'or as well as the petite aiguille. Aiguille in French means needle, and it's a just like a hand is different from a watch hand. A needle is different from the what's considered the needle on a watch. Okay, so that's where the needle comes from. How about the best decorated mechanical movement? You know, that is a very good one. They do have one for jewelry and artistic crafts, but one for the best finishing. Whoa, I think that's a great idea to have the best finished ones and have the anglage and the perlage and the all of those things in the movement. I think that's a very good idea. Okay, so we got now the one that's I don't know. What do you guys think about iconic? The more I've been thinking about that, I think it's sort of like these are for watch companies that have been around a long time. and they make money by something that's not. I mean, it's sort of good standard horology, but nothing earth shaking. And so I thought, well, we'll have iconic companies like Tag Heuer. I hope that Tag Heuer, I mean, with um, Carol, what's her last name? See, Carol Forste. If I say it in English pronunciation, it'll sound terrible, but I'll try. Carol Forstier Kasapi. She was the one who won the Watchmaker of the Year back in, I think it was in 2012. And she made all of these great movements for Cartier and left Cartier for whatever reason and is now the top watchmaker at Tag Heuer. Tag Heuer keeps coming up with these caliber 13s and caliber 15s, which are nothing more than some version of an ETA that they played around with. And I would really like to see them have their own movement. But she hasn't done anything for them yet. However, the interesting thing is that Tag Heuer has some wonderful iconic ones like the Monaco, and so it could win with a watch like the Monaco, but it's not going to win because of the movement. It's going to win because of its iconic. I don't know. I think iconic is there so that some of the established ones won't go home with nothing. Who knows? Um, she joined the empire. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you have the iconic category. To me, it's I don't know why. It does something that takes away to me from from the whole thing. Now the Academy Awards seem to have some lame awards like that, so maybe it's something like that. I don't know. Okay, the tourbillon. Now, I that's a perfectly good category. Tourbillons are very complex pieces of watchmaking, and if you enter a tourbillon, you're not competing against non-tourbillons. You're competing against other ones, and so I think that's not a bad at all. They used to have that used to be in the they had another competition uh, that it may have been the mechanical exception or the chronometer category. There were so many tourbillons in it and winning, they said, well, we'll just have a tourbillon. But then uh, when I saw that Audemars Piguet had a had a tourbillon in the men's complication, I thought, well, wait a minute, why don't that's not that that's not right. I don't know. But anyway, that was one of the things I thought, yeah, maybe you ought to do is sort of tighten up the rules. Okay, tourbillon, calendar and astronomy. I think that those are fine. I don't know if any of you've seen the sort of the planetarium, I guess is what it is, that Christian Vanderclaw did for Van Cleef and Arpels, and I think there's some other ones like that that they put it out as regular watches. But that is really an amazing kind of movement, and whether how that competes with a perpetual calendar or something like that, I guess it's okay. Any comments or thoughts on that? Hi, Owen. Should there be a best new brand if there's an iconic? Yeah, I think, oh, and that's a good point. And there really is something like that. It's not a category that is beforehand, but rather they have one that they once everybody has won a prize or not won a prize, they have a couple other prizes. One is most innovative. One is called what's it called? Something like the most fearless, for something really wild. Last year the one that Louis Vuitton had with the skull and the snake going through its eyes, that was the one that won for the, I don't know, most, it wasn't most bizarre, but it was the most, it wasn't the most innovative anyway. They have another one for it, or something like that. I think that's a good idea though. Um, let's put a battery against the mechanical in the same category. Okay, this is, you hit on something there that, Nigel, that they shouldn't do, I don't think. Right now, they have in the challenge category and in the petit degree category. Now, these are two categories where, you know, younger watch companies can sort of get a foot in. This is how Harboring 2 did. Harboring 2 has won a lot of those. And the only thing that Rolex has won is through Tudor, and Tudor's won a lot of those. And these are ones that are, the Petit Aiguille is under 10,000 and the challenge is under 3,500 Swiss francs. Nobody knows how much any money's worth today because of the all of the changes that have happened recently. But the thing of it is about those two categories that really to me is not right is why they have a, you can also have quartz watches and you can have electronic or smart watches in there with petite aiguille and the challenge watches, and I thought, well, that's not right. You can, my God, I tell you, I've seen these. You can get a $20 quartz watch with all kinds of whiz bangs on it. You just can't do that with a mechanical watch. But they, I don't, for some whatever reason, they just said, well, we're going to throw them in there. What I think they should have is a separate category for that. I mean, if they're going to allow quartz and electronic or smart watches in, put them in the same category. They just did that this year, starting this year with clocks. Clocks are in these weird categories. I don't know if they ever won, but they said, hey, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to have a clock category, and they did. I think that if they're going to allow in watches like quartz or smart watches, they should do the same thing. Um, Truman, how you doing, man? I don't. Uh, that would certainly be come under the innovative category, Forbin. Hi, Matt. I really hope the Atelier perception wins the challenge category. Yeah. This is something a lot of people are very about. One thing is that do the German and the Asian watches have the same chance that Swiss watches have? The reason I bring that up is that um, there have been a lot of times that, for example, some Seiko maybe just have really hit one out of the park, but they get bumped by one of the one of the Swiss brands. Um, that can I'm not saying that people sit around and say, well, this is what it should, this is what's going on. But you have half of the judges are Swiss, at least half, and then you have people from all over the world. So I don't know. That's sort of a tough one. Um, Hi, Harry. How about the weight or thinness as a category? Oh, that's another interesting one, the thinnest watch. Right now, I think Piaget just came out with a one that's heading for paper thin. Bulgari also has one that they're going for that too. But that's sort of an interesting category. Whether there are enough watches that it would make it robust enough to have a competition for, that's another thing I think that's important to ask. Um, Hi, Thomas. How you doing, man? Tim. Okay. Okay. Sorry to go off the uh, off subject, but Anyone know if JLC made instrument dials for the old Bugatti cars? No idea. Um, I know that a lot of them were in airplanes. Airplanes had a lot, back in, you look at the World War II era, and a lot of the clocks in airplanes were wind up watches by Jaeger-LeCoultre. So there. Um, Tuna quartz should be have their own category. I agree. Smartwatches too, if there is such a thing. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Somebody was asking, Beauty of Scent was asking about the rancher. He is there for you. Dominic, how about uh, a torture test for basic three-hand chronographs, GMT, and so forth? In other words, putting them through something like they have for the quality Fourier, something like that. You sort of put them through the QF thing. Apparently, they're supposed to really stomp on them to see how well they work. It's sort of like a tough sports watch one. What are those events? The Iron Man event or something like that, and they run and they do all of this, and they swim 2 miles, and then they go and they shoot guns and they do everything. There's some kind of competition like that. That might be it. Um, okay. All right. So, calendar and astronomy, that sounds good. Now, this is sort of an interesting one. They have men's complication and then they have mechanical exception. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between those two. Unless mechanical exception is some kind of really new innovation, whereas men's complication, they can use complications that have been around for a while. But if you look at the watches in those categories, it's sort of like, excuse me, they could have been in one or the other. I don't know. Any comments on that? Beauty of Sin, any what is it today is we'll have non sequitur day. Um, Beauty of Sin, thoughts on the new Swatch Omega Moon watch? Yeah, people like it. I mean, it's sort of like it's sort of like a Hello Kitty watch, except it's the moon watch instead of Hello Kitty. That's my opinion, but what do I know? Lee, shoot guns. Nope, only for fracking gold. No, there is one that's an Olympic sport. They run, they swim, they may even row boats for all I know, and then they shoot. They have sharpshooters and stuff. Hi, Jose. Is there a category for micro brands? No, there isn't. Sort of this is sort of a funny kind of thing. Um, you take, for example, the number of watches that Grubel Foresight produce every year. They don't have any more than a so-called micro brand. In fact, they may have less than a lot of them. So it's when does something? I mean, is a micro brand something that you have a top watchmaker involved in? Let's say that one of the AHCI watchmakers, one of these really top independents. There's this guy in France whose stuff I really like, and he makes like one or two or three watches a year, and they're all just incredibly cool watches, but they're also very expensive. But I don't think he's seen as a micro brand. That's sort of a tough one. I know what you're saying though, sort of for these. I think the challenge category is really for micro brands. Excuse me, where you have something under $3,500 or under 3,500 Swiss francs, or even the petite aiguille, one might argue is for that. The trouble is, though, with both of those categories, Tudor, which nobody considers a micro brand, win a bunch of them. Every year Tudor's going to win one of those, or maybe the diver category. The diver category is another one. Um, Let me back up one. You have the mechanical exception and men's complication. I think there needs to be some kind of clarification between those two. The next one is chronograph. That's pretty clear. The chronograph. I think it's a good category to have. Now the divers category. There used to be a category they called sports, but the divers. I mean, there's no category for other kind of sports like uh, a non-diver nautical sports. These are boats for yachters and stuff like that. Uh, Pilot watches for pilots. I don't know, sports can be. It was with me. Um, Motorsports. What are some other sports that they have that were you? I don't know why divers. I guess the divers are because they have to have a watch that goes underwater. Motorsports, probably motorsports would require some kind of chronograph that does some kind of measurement like that. But I think divers is one that is a little too narrow, and I'd like to see it go back to being a sports category. Um, Matt, the one and only, we need a best bang for the buck. I don't know how they would. That would be. I like the idea, best bang for the buck. I think that's left to us collectors to figure that one out for ourselves. Motorboating, yeah, there you go. Well, really for sailing and stuff, that's sort of like not underwater water sports, of and different kinds of things like that. Is there a category for chronographs and GMT watches? Well, GMTs would. Oh, no, there used to be one for GMTs. That's one I would add. I think there ought to be a category for travel watches, both GMTs and world timers. They used to have that category and they got rid of it for some reason, but I thought it was a good one. Jewelry, yeah, jewelry they allow quartz, and it's interesting for ladies' watches they allow quartz, but not for ladies' complications. For jewelry and I think artistic class they allow quartz into that. Jewelry and artistic class, and even with the ladies, your primary thing there that you have is a artistic something artistic about it. I was looking at one of the Celadon watches earlier today. Uh, Boy, this one is their Starry Night, which is a closing um, method using making these little outlines and filling them up with um, enamel. Incredible process. And this you can put anything in there, nobody would really care. But what they have done, they have this bespoke movement they put in by one of the Asian AHCI guys, 18,000 semi oscillations per hour. They get no credit for this, and they should. But we'll see how they do this year. They don't have that one, but they have another one entered on that. Um, okay, Washington. Hi. Perhaps an award can be given for accreditation institute like COSC, Geneva Seal, the highest standards required. Every now and then they'll have these special awards for something or other. Um, I they'll just sort of make up something like this. One guy, are you familiar with the only? I think it's called the Only One contest or One Only, one of the two, and it's every other year they have an auction really, and the money goes to for some kind of disease, and they raise a lot of money doing that. And a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, they gave an award to the guy who invented that. I mean, who started that program. And so they may have the same thing for ones that started, these other kinds of things, like COSC. I wonder. Uh, I wonder if the Ranger will win this year. Great value, but a bit boring. Something about who's boring to watch or the viewer. Uh, Great chatting. Good to see you. Truman, let me see. Category for a price range should be a norm. Truman, um, well, the only ones they have that for are the Petit Aiguille and the Challenge. Uh, I know what you're saying, but it can be very difficult. One year, God, it was 2017, I think, there was a watch in the, I think it was sports category, and there was a Ulysse Nardine that was about, it was over $100,000. And the one that won was a $2,500 watch. And I talked to one of the judges, and he told me, he said, this watch did everything this other one did without the bling. And he was right. And it's sort of an interesting thing. There was this one watch, I'm trying to figure out which one it was. It's the Sagograph or something like that. And it was, I was so surprised when it won, but sometimes that happens. It's not always the most expensive watch that wins. Uh, Oftentimes, if you take a look at some of the, if you go back and look back for a few years, you can ring up the what they call either pre-selected watches or the nominated watches. Check out their prices and then check out the winners, and you can see to what extent the highest price is the one that won or not. Um, would I be a judge? Sure, I'd be a great judge. I think after I started the third riot, I think they might ask me to leave, but I don't know. I here you have judging the watches. You have a lot of people, and there's so many different things they think about. There was, for example, let me tell you this. This is my hunch. Right now in the men's category, there's a watch by Akiriva, and it's called Complication 2, I think, or something like that. His watches are just fabulous. I'd love to have one. But a few years ago, the Akiriva Complication 1 won the men's award. So I'm sort of wondering whether or not, even if it were the best watch in the men's category, that they would give the same award to something that was not, something simply a little different version of the original one. I don't know. I know that the only watchmaker that's won three grand prizes is FP Journe. Some of them have won two. One of the interesting things is with Audemars Piguet. Audemars Piguet, I think, has had entries into the Grand Prix since it started in 2001. They have won more Grand Prix awards than anybody else, but until just a couple years ago, they had never won the Grand Prize. And so finally they won it. But other ones, they'll go in there and they'll win it coming and going. Um, Gerbel Force is winning a lot. Um, Funny thing happened with Alonga Unsunda. They went in, they were winning a whole lot, and all of a sudden they seemed like they got shut out. So they quit putting them in. there's there's so much stuff going on that we mere mortals sort of just wonder about. Um, Hi from Thailand. How you doing? Okay, there are different judges for different categories. Lee, I think so. I think they have like groups of judges that one group will be judging certain things, um, and others. there were a couple people I know who have been judges uh, recently that I know of. I don't know whether they get to be judges every year or not. Uh, so we'll see. Hi, brand headlights. What do you think of the auto sport from Laurent Fourier? I don't know yet. I've really been thinking about that. I'm not sure whether I like it or not. Maybe it's because it's not what I expected from Laurent Fourier. It's sort of like his version, I guess, of the Nautilus or something. I don't know. I get it. I to me, it's something that okay. It just doesn't seem to go with his style, though. But that's me. What do I know? Um, well, they have that for, but take a look at the challenge category. That's for anything under um, 3,500, including it includes smartwatches or quartz watches too. I don't know how many they have for regular people, but not a whole lot. I know that. Listen, I'm over my time. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't sign off. Thank you all for taking the time to, and I like you have some great ideas, and take care, and hope we can be around for next week. And by the end of about a month from now, a little over a month from now, we're going to find out who made the first round. By the way, we've had a great response to the Grand Prix picks, and like I said, it's a horse race. So if you're interested, there's still plenty of time to enter. Take care.